FBI Director James Comey wants a federal judge Wednesday to dismiss his criminal case. Comey's lawyers argue the prosecution is vindictive and rooted in President Trump's personal hatred of him. Scripps News Washington correspondent Stephanie Liebergen joins us now live outside the courtroom in Alexandria, Virginia. And Stephanie, you were in that courtroom, so tell us what happened today.
Hey, Holly, good afternoon. Well, this hearing today lasted a little less than an hour and a half, was scheduled to talk about that vindictive prosecution motion. And then it did take up a bulk of the hearing, the defense arguing that this case never would have been brought forward. Comey would never be under prosecution if it weren't for President Trump and his personal views of Comey and his personal disagreements, viewing Comey as a political ally. The government attorneys in court today saying that it was Lindsay Halligan and Lindsay Halligan alone who made the decision to move forward with this prosecution and present it to the grand jury. But it was actually discussion of the grand jury proceedings that I think is the most notable thing that happened out of this hearing. After the, discussions over the vindictive prosecution motion, the judge questioned the government attorneys on some of the grand jury proceedings, and there was a number of back and forth. There were a few moments where the lead attorney for the government needed to confer with Lindsay Halligan and another government attorney. There was a point where the issue the judge was taking was whether the indictment that Comey is actually facing was formally presented to the grand jury. Some of these questions are what we saw come up with a ruling that came also related to this case, but that came down on Monday. There was a moment in court today where the judge said, so Comey is facing a document that was never presented to the grand jury in the grand jury room. The government attorney saying yes. So there's definitely a lot of questions about how exactly the grand jury documents were put together, how the indictment was presented, and whether, the government and whether Lindsay Halligan, as the interim U.S. attorney, followed the proper procedures. There was a moment in court today where myself and some other members of the media sitting in the courtroom, we honestly wondered if the judge was just going to go ahead and dismiss this in this hearing today, but he did not. On the issue of the vindictive prosecution, he said he wasn't going to rule from the bench today, that there was a lot of weighty issues that he needed to consider, but he didn't give us a timeline on when he actually might rule on that motion. The only thing we know is the next hearing scheduled for December 9th to consider other defense motions, but I would argue, Holly, we're probably going to have a lot of action happening between now and then the next time the Comey is expected to be in court.
All right, Scripps News Washington correspondent Stephanie Liebergen live for us. Thank you for that update. We'll keep following this with you.